Rav Tzuriel is talking about the acquisition of the midah of humility, anava. How do you develop humility? I was asking about this. People have certain characteristics to them. It's their personality. What behaviors exemplify the humble person? Give me an example why I asked about behaviors. What?
The opposite of exaggeration.
Exaggeration. Well, the opposite of humility is pride, right? Pride or arrogance. Pride is perhaps a good thing. It's good to have a little bit of pride, like Jewish pride, national pride, pride in being chosen by God, right? But arrogance is pretty bad, right? That's what Ram says. You have to go all the way to the extreme. On the spectrum from arrogant to humble, you should try to be as far to the humble side, right? So if I told you an arrogant person is boastful, so don't be boastful. Okay, I could do that. I'm very good. I'm very good at not boasting. But no, let's talk seriousness. If you're Rambam talks about being a spendthrift or being stingy. So a person who's stingy doesn't give charity and doesn't. Sometimes he's mentally ill. He won't even spend on his own food. He deprives himself. That's a problem. So certain behaviors. The person who has the midah of kas, you see his behaviors, and a person who's calm, you know his behaviors. What are the behaviors of a humble person? How does it show in his actions? So that was the question I had. So that's why we opened up this chapter. It says you have to acquire it. Basically, the Rambam says you acquire the characteristics by behaving a certain way. You want to do the right things. You want to push yourself to the extreme. So the Rambam says, how do you teach a child to be charitable? How you make him give tzedakah. So if you tell your child, press a button, and nowadays we do everything online. Put in the credit card number and to press a button here because now your thing's on file and give to this charity. It doesn't have the same effect. But he says, get a few prutas, change your dollar bill into pennies and have your child give a penny and give another penny and another penny. Get him used to putting that penny in the pushka. Let him do it many times so he develops this trait of giving. Many small acts of giving. Become a giving person. That's how you develop the midah of being charitable. And how do you develop the midah of being of chesed? Or let's say Avram Avinu did chesed and hachnasas orchim. You have the child bring in the guest who actually needs a place. And, what we do on Shabbos, by the way, have guests for Shabbos. Your neighbor, he has a perfectly fine house and also plenty of food, and you just want to eat together because you guys are really big buddies. That's not hachnasas orchim. That's called simcha mereus. That's just having social, enjoying your social group. Yeah, that's real hachnasas orchim. So what most people do, especially on a place like this, we don't have homeless people. We don't have too many people coming from out of there were some refugees, but most of the refugees are now in the hotels. They'd rather go to a hotel. I can understand them, but some places want to be among families. Okay. So my question was, how do you develop the trait of humility? You want to become a humble Jew. So that's what Rabbi Tzuriel is addressing here. It says echad min darkei kinyan ha'anavahu shvirat harason. Destruction of the will. What does that mean? A way to acquire this is by accepting when things don't go your way. Adam shehu anau einenu mithra'im v'lo choes kisheroeh shemifirim et bakashotav. A person who's truly humble does not get upset, doesn't get angry when he sees that what he was seeking doesn't happen. A guy walks in, he's going to give examples, which is really close to my heart. Kasher adam yitpalel b'veit knesset. Person's praying in the synagogue. Uyesh samuch lo hamitpalel b'kol umafrielo. What happened basically on Tuesday? You have a guy there who's davening out loud. He's Shemon Esrei. There was one guy making like a noise. He was trying to hawk a loogie the entire Psukim Zimra Kriyas Shemon Esrei, and no one had the guts to tell him, dude, please walk out. He was making like a snorting noise every 5 seconds. Okay? That's basically what Rav Tzuriel describes. You're stuck with someone's ruining the davening. Oh, mevi yiladim ktanim amafrim lo. The other guy next to you brings little children to the synagogue and they're fighting. You see this. They're doing something. They're talking during Shemon Esrei. By the way, we had this on Rosh Hashanah also. Every Rosh Hashanah happens. You saw this. Some guy brings kids to Shachris and Musaf. It's like, we're going to sound the shofar now, so everybody be quiet. I'm going to go to everybody like kids, And then I have to go. I've left. I walked out Musaf 2015. I stopped in the middle of my Musaf as Chazan to take children out of the synagogue. The father wasn't doing it. No, I showed him this is the halacha. Stop the davening. You take your child out. Start again. Okay, you have to. The davening wasn't happening with this. Anyways, so that's the case. Im yitzak v'yigarbo. So if you yell at the guy who's interrupting the davening, okay, chastise him. Lamrot mashe siyem b'tfilat lachash. Against what he says, and what did he say at the end of the silent Shemona Esrei? V'nafshi ke'afar lakol tichya. There's a prayer. I don't want to speak lashon hara. That's basically what the kind of Surah L'Shadim was about. Nafshi ke'afar lakol tichya. I want to be like dust. God, give me humility. I am dust underneath everybody's feet. But the problem is this guy was interrupting in shul, so I went and told him, you really shouldn't stop that. I remember I saw someone happen during Shemona Esrei when we were davening. This guy's phone starts to ring during Shemona Esrei. So he stopped the beeping. And it starts ringing again. He keeps stopping his phone. Just silence it. My friends told him, silence your phone. Shut off your phone. Don't let that happen a fourth time. This is during silent Shemona Esrei. Okay. He says, Lo nahag b'chach minhag anava. A person who got up and told the guy, "Go be quiet already. Go leave shul. You're bothering us." He was not being humble. He did not act with the midah of humility. Why? Because the way he said it, he was ga'arbo.
Well, if he's
being disruptive. So that's the rabbi's job, and someone's supposed to motion to him. But this is the private individual. The guy sitting next to you, he's disrupting you, and you said something. You should have accepted it. God is made for your ratzon.
What happened to
I know. So most of us don't know how to do it right. And besides, it's because it bothered you. He says he took it personally. He's like, I'm trying to daven, you're making noise. Okay. Yeah, that's the problem. Hu adin kasher ishto shel adam misarevet levako shatov. Same thing happens when a guy's wife doesn't do what he wants him to do. Wife, I told you, please fold the laundry by the time I get back. Okay. I had asked just for a hot bowl of soup when I come home. Coming home from work at 9:30 at night. I need a bowl of soup. Okay? Bimiuchad kasher mifeirabert sono tav shuv v'shuv. Especially if he does it again. A lot of people, this is their challenge in life. They have a wonderful wife, but there's one thing she just doesn't do right. He says, please make sure that X, Y, and Z, why come home? And he doesn't get that from his wife. Yeah, it happens to everybody. Okay, apparently this is a common thing. Nivdak Adam im rachash lo midat hanava. This is God's test to see, has he developed the trait of anava, to come home and say, it's God's will that I'm just not going to get this. My will is that I wanted chocolate chip cookies every time I come home for Shabbos, and I never get it. Are you okay with that? Rabbi Attar tells us a lot of times, you have to understand, when things don't go your way, what's your response? Are you accepting or are you not? Because it's a test every single time. So you're not married yet. No one here is married yet, but guys going to get married. This is going to be, where's everybody, by the way? This is going to be your test. Okay? When things don't go your way, are you going to do it? Hare al pasuk tov la gever ki isa ol bidurav. It's good for a man, it says a gever specifically, not just niche, it's talking about a man, the male, that he bears the yoke while he is young. The ol is basically, if you have an ox, it has a yoke attached to it so it could pull the plow or the wagon full of stuff. Okay, so a yoke you could technically speak, if you really want to be mean to your slave, you can make the slave wear the yoke, right? Have the slave pull the plow. It says that Elisha did. He had oxen, but there was one ox missing, so he himself was pulling the yoke. So you attach the yoke to the slave, or it could just be a mushal for extreme, avodas parach. Backbreaking labor is when the slave has the yoke on him. So it says in Eicha, Yirmiyahu Navi said, Jeremiah the prophet said, it's good for a man to bear the yoke while he is yet young. So Chazal said in Eicha Rab on that, Ol Isha, the yoke of a woman. That means he gets used to having a little bit of, in his marriage, things not going his way, because it helps him develop this characteristic of humility. So the military will do that to you also, unfortunately. Yep, they'll enslave you. They'll take the best years of your life. They'll put you in danger. They'll tell you that, almost like that joke my daughter showed me. The poor soldier's in training. He has a gun, and the guy tests him. Okay, the terrorist is coming at you with a knife. He's at the other side of the room. What do? I shoot. It's like, no, you're not allowed to shoot. It's against the rules, and this and that. Terrorist is getting closer. He's screaming Allahu Akbar, and he's about to stab you. What do? Well, I shoot. No, you're not allowed to shoot. Now it's against the rules. He hasn't attacked you yet. And now, finally, up the stage, he's stabbing you in the back with a knife. What do? I ask him to stop. It's like, no, you idiot, you shoot. What do you think you have a gun for? Okay, so yes, you go to the army because they're there to put you at risk and to teach you not to think for yourself and to even tell you to rebel against your own God or to defend the enemy sometimes, right?
But at least if you're religious, you know what you're doing.
Yes, that's why you have to. That's why the advantage of the army is if you have good, committed Jews. That's why I want more Haredim in the army. Good, committed Jews who are not going to be told what to do and question authority, and they only obey one authority. At least they are now armed. They have training, and they know how to use it. And now they could be good Jews and fight for Hashem and not for, the purity of arms and other such nonsense. Okay, thank you, Rav Tzuriel, for teaching us these lessons.